Alright guys, are you ready to see this dress on? This is going to be your before and after. Let's try it. So, I already knew this. This dress fits really well. Can you tell? No matter what I do, I can't actually. Look at the edge. There's some tricks we want to know when we get stuck in the dressing room with our hands up high. Well, you guys, this is the finished product from that 60s dress that didn't fit. So what do you think? You want to start a project with me? Anyway, so this dress does not fit me, but I am super excited to actually cut it up and to make it into something really cool. So, are you ready to make this into something that actually fits? And here we go. So, go ahead and pick a dress, if you're going to do this with me, that actually fits you really well. This has a lot of structure and no stretch. So it fits this upper area really well, and I think when I cut the top, it's not going to fall down. It seems to actually be a really good shape. I am going to take out this adorable vintage zipper and save it for another piece because I'm only going to keep about this much of the back since it's got such a low hanging back. And I purchased, well, I don't know where I put it, but I purchased like a bra back for that element. So I'm really excited. I already marked where these cups are going to go, and we're going to just start free cutting and see what happens. So hopefully this will be a good kind of test case for your next play suit. Let's get started. So one thing I want to encourage you to do a lot of is constantly try on the garment you're going to be adjusting. I've already put this on like 4 times. It's not going to be the last time. So I want to cut this probably around right here. It's about like 1 inch underneath my ribs. And I'm going to need probably 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of a seam allowance. Maybe this is waterproof. I guess I can just do it. So that's where I want it to be done finished wise. So I'm just going to mark and draw a straight edge. Also, this goes really far up my armpit, so I'm thinking I'm going to cut this down a little bit here.
Alright, so I'm using tape. You can use whatever you feel comfortable. I decided to use this tape because I wanted to be able to move it. So I'm placing it knowing that I'm going to try it on and use this as a guide. Also, I'm using this tape to kind of figure out where I wanted to draw my lines because I didn't want to have a ton of lines that I was just correcting like crazy. Also, you'll notice that I'm not using a measuring tape, though I probably should have been. I'm just using little things to eyeball everything. As a designer, I tend to eyeball a lot of stuff now, and it comes naturally, but please use a ruler and, you know, do this in the easiest way possible for you.
So this is the terrifying part. Cutting is the worst, especially when you're free cutting because like you don't really know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. But you kind of have to just trust your instincts and hope that you're right and hope that you can fix it if you're not right. So I guess let's see what happens. I could cut more conservatively if I really wanted to.
Alright, so here we go. I did decide to cut a lot more conservatively. I think I gave myself about an extra 1/2 inch. In the end, that was a good thing. Also, don't forget to rotate your piece. I was kind of suffering a little bit and not thinking to rotate my piece. Just do whatever feels comfortable in that moment.
Alright, let's try it on and see how off we are. Alright, so I am actually super glad that I was conservative because I would have ended up cutting closer to here, and I actually am glad that I didn't cut that far. So being conservative again is good. Also, here's my tape line for where I'm planning on cutting the bottom of it. So now that I'm pretty happy with that, I'm going to actually rip out the zipper so that I don't destroy it, and then I'm going to continue with cutting.
So this is while the zipper's still in. I'm looking at the edge of the zipper to the armpit area where I cut. So this is me actually cutting the armpit area off. And the material was pretty thick because you have all those seams from before. And yeah, I just had to kind of go for it. I did eyeball this. That is something I chose to do. You're welcome to mark it first. I was feeling pretty confident and bold, so. Also, this is where I ripped out my zipper. I love this zipper. I ended up using it for the shorts, and it's fantastic. It was the perfect length, and I'll have that video coming out shortly. All right, so now I'm using that tape line, and see how I can kind of see it a little bit on the edge. I'm using that as a guide for the back. Again, I'm super used to eyeballing things, but I do end up measuring here, so bring out your ruler. I will say, even though I was struggling a little bit to get the tape off right there, I did enjoy using the tape. I felt like it was a really good way of marking my project without having to commit to drawing lines. And here I'm measuring, making sure everything is about the same from side to side. For my eyeballing of the back, I was actually off. Logically, what I should have done is I should have marked a couple tick marks on like what length it was instead of trying to hold the ruler while moving the tape. Obviously, you know, hindsight's 20/20. So I really do love this fabric, but I did decide going into this project that I was going to be bold and not afraid to cut. Still, I was apprehensive, but you have to just go for it. Like, do not put this project aside because you're afraid to cut into a garment, even if the fabric is awesome, because this is how you learn. You can also always start with something that you don't like that much because it's going to end up being way cuter regardless. And again, I kind of figured this dress was adorable and it wasn't going to get worn the way it was because it didn't fit. So now that we have it cut out, we are going to be taking our other fabric and making our booby points. That is a technical term, I'm sure. So I actually just kind of eyeballed this again and used the top as a kind of an outline. Looking back, I'm okay with the fact that it was a little like less than perfect. I'm not a perfectionist, though I do enjoy making my own patterns and making everything symmetrical, but I'm also super big on starting a project and just like going for it. So I wanted to be able to show you like that you don't need technical skills to be able to create this. You don't need a computer to make yourself a new pattern. You just need to like visually picture what you're doing and, you know, just go for it. And I'm hoping this video really shows that you don't need a pattern and you don't need to plan out everything. Though obviously that's always the easy way. So what you're looking at here is I have the first piece and I am pinning it in place to see how it lays because I wasn't sure. I'm going off of a picture and I wanted to see what it's going to end up looking like. So this is kind of like that first test print. This is obviously not the finished piece. It's going to have two pieces and we're going to turn it inside out. But this is the first place you want to try and see visually if you like where you're going with the piece. Again, try on whatever you're making as often as you can.
This test fit reveals a few different things. One, I'm going to have to probably take it in a little bit more under the arms or arrange it so that it Yeah, I think I might just have to do like a little pinch on the sides here eventually. Also, when I first pinned this, it laid like this, which I wanted to actually lay kind of like right at like the nipple point and then fold down. So again, this is just a test print to see kind of if this is even the right size. Ideally, this print would be on this side so that if it was up, it would show that side, even though you'd never wear it that way. It's kind of like part of that look. So I'm gonna probably steal enough of this from the shorts because the shorts are kind of a second nature thing, or second, not as important. Also, what we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna end up pinching this in on the other side, of course, to continue that taper down.
So this is us tracing in order to get the other side of our, I don't know what you'd call them, like boob flaps. And I wasn't too worried about this, but I did find that the fabric was driving me absolutely nuts because you'll notice that like part of it is bent over from one of the seams, and I ended up having to stop and go iron it flat once I cut it out because I couldn't actually pin it to the other piece without ironing it. Ironing is your friend when you're sewing, just keep that in mind and make sure you have an iron because it makes such a big difference. So after ironing, this is what it looked like. Nice and smooth. I am just pinning it all the way around the edge so that they're together. Make sure that the outsides of your fabric are on the outside. You want the good part that you want showing on the inside so that when we flip this inside out, it looks and has the most amazing colors possible. So also we're going to be keeping about a 2-inch gap open towards the bottom, and I'll be going over that in a second once we start sewing. Because I'm not using a pattern, I did decide to clean up the edges. You don't have to do this, but since we're turning it inside out, I didn't want any extra fabric.
Alright, so if you're following along with me, you've made a little mini top. This is just an accent piece, and this side is what's going to actually show, but we're going to be turning it inside out after we're done. So you're going to want to leave a gap at the bottom that's at least 2 inches maybe, and that's going to be pulling it all the way through. So we're just going to use a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch. I kind of just decide once I start. And once we're finished sewing, we're going to turn it inside out. So, actually I'm sewing on this side. And here we go. So the reason I didn't keep going on that one was because my needles were the wrong way and it would be easier to do it this way. Plus, I want to make sure I leave my 2-inch gap, so I'm actually going to start 2 inches. So I sewed this, I'm going to start right here so that I know I'm leaving that 2 inches to turn it inside out. Ouch, 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 ouch. Alright, I will go grab my kitty cat to put these nails in. So everything looks pretty good on this side. And now we're just going to turn it inside out.
So you can just use your fingers for this. You can use a pen if you think that'll help, just don't push too hard. And the key to this is ironing at the end because it just helps smooth it all out. You can't hear me, but I say it's tiny. But it ended up being actually a fantastic size. I love it.
Alright, this is what we've got, so let's go iron it and see what it looks like. Alrighty. So we're doing another test fit. These are officially done, so we have to decide if we like them or not. Again, because I think the whole point is that you only see like this corner right here. So I think that's actually where it's supposed to be. Alright, let's keep going.
So what I'm showing you here is my 2-inch gap, and we're just going to close that seam up by sewing over the top. I'm going to try to show you, but it's kind of blurry. You're just kind of sewing as close to the edge as you can. Alright, so now we're going to just be folding the very top edge so that we can sew it down and have a nice clean hem on the top of your top. Honestly, sometimes the pinning can be more obnoxious than the sewing. And here is a close-up for the point on the top of your shirt. And you might already know this, but as you can see, I'm opening up that seam and then folding down my hem. And that's because you don't want to have too much fabric built up in one area. And we're just going to go all the way to the edge there. You can worry about anything else later. Alright, so this is not a must, but this particular mechanism is awesome and it really helps you get super close to the edge. I absolutely love it. So if you have one, go ahead and put this on your sewing machine. So if you haven't done this before, you should have a little lever that should just release it like mine did. And then you're just going to hold that lever in order to just kind of click it back into place and your foot switched. Funny story, I actually avoided using that foot for forever because I thought it would be super hard to switch them. So don't be afraid of doing it, it's actually quite easy. Alright, here we go. So at the end, you should probably already know this, but you're going to just get as close to the end as you can, slow it down a little bit, and then hit that reverse to back up on that stitch and make it really secure. If you're following along with me, then we are going to be putting our extra little mini top on top of our actual top. So go ahead and pin the center first and then work your way out to the edges. Okay, so we're at the test fitting again. I cannot stress enough how important this is when I'm making anything from scratch. And I think when I start doing stuff from patterns, I'm going to start doing this again too. Try it on as many times as you can. So I did pin this and I feel pretty good about the height, but when I was looking at it, I didn't like how baggy this was. And so when I pin it to the actual foam cups, I feel like there's this like bagginess right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpin this again, which, you know, it sucks, but honestly, I'd rather do it at this stage than at another stage. So it looks like part of that has to do with where these points hit. So I'm thinking it just needs to be a little taller than what I was having it. I had it a little bit farther down. With that, I feel like I do need to take a pinch in here, but on the inside. And on this side too. And if I do that, I think it's going to sit a lot better. And then once we have that figured out, then we can add that top piece. So let's see what happens. Alright, so one of the tricks I really like to use is I turn it inside out and I pin it on me. So I'm thinking right here. Just a little pinch. And on this side. Essentially, your garment should fit exactly the same inside out. Alright, so let's sew that and we'll go to the next stage, but I think it's necessary to have it. I think it's going to be a crucial part of making this fit the way I want it to fit. And then later we might end up taking more in right here, which you can see there's already pleats, and we might just take that pleat in a little thicker all the way down to the bottom because it's kicking out currently. In fact, why wait? Everything in the back feels like it's fitting really well. It feels like it's flush. So we're just going to pin this pleat. So if I sew it straight down from this current seam, that should be good. So one thing to keep in mind for any sewing project, in case this is something that you're doing for the first time, The farther you get into any sewing project, the higher the stakes are, because you've already come this far and you can ruin it on the next part of this situation. Take buttonholes, for instance. They're like the last thing you do, and you can totally ruin a garment with your buttonholes. But think about it like this. You could create something and it could be your favorite piece ever, and it could have been $8 at Goodwill, and I don't know, it can be the next best thing. And also, it's just mistakes, and you can always do better on the next one, so take chances. Let's see what happens. So since I want to follow this seam, I'm just going to put it in this direction instead, so I can kind of follow it with my piece. So currently it fits really well. So now let's pin this sucker on, I guess. So it looks like that. I might actually add, I bought some facing for this. And it's a little late to add it, but I might add it, or try to add it anyway, just to try to keep these points up. So I think we are all ready. I have this kind of mock hemmed because I had it longer in the back than in the front. And I feel like everything's fitting pretty well. So we're gonna sew this line right here and go from there. Following the where to and what to start with steps, go ahead and start sewing. You've got this. In general, I'd say this is all pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions, please leave those in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Alright, so I ended up getting these bra strap things instead of doing buttons. Originally, I had planned on doing buttons, but I thought this might actually be more seamless. So this is actually a bra extender, but I'm going to cut it apart and use this part and this part. I have never done this before, but I think it will work. So the idea is to sew this part and have it connect to this part right here, which we're going to also cut. Right. Sure. Hopefully that's enough to work with. Again, I'm not sure. So this hemline here, which is like, I'm keeping the length right now because in case I decide to ever do buttons, I thought I would just keep that length so I could actually seam rip it out later on if I wanted to. And let's see, I'm going to enforce this hem and then I'm going to add the extra bra pieces. I think the most annoying part about doing any custom work is constantly trying it on and off. It is super obnoxious to constantly be trying something on, but it seems to work. So it's a little hard to see what I'm doing here. Those bra pieces are so thick that I had a hard time not putting them right in front of my body in order to clasp them on. So pretty much just pin them on the best you can. Know that they're going to be hard to sew through because they're very thick, but it does seem to work. So this ended up being so thick that I couldn't actually do a back stitch, so I just ran through it a couple times and it seems to be holding up. So on that one I actually upped my tension, so it was at 6 and I made it 8. I've noticed that when it's really thick material, the higher tension number really helps. Okay, so it fits
and what's probably mostly happening is that as I have it on, this is kind of coming apart, and so I'm going to try to do a couple stitches this direction. It's pretty thick, so I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. I might have to come back with some hand stitching. I'm just going to try to run it through. So this is the top as of right now. And all you have to do now is make shorts and make a little tiny neck piece, which I'm not really sure how those go on and off. Maybe they just like clasp in the back, or we could do a tie. A tie might be nice, having a little bit of string hanging down the back. But, whew, I'm ready to call it a night.
Alright, so I just used a 1-inch ruler and drew a bunch of lines. Obviously, if you have more fabric, you can just do one whole thing. Because I was doing so many cut pieces, I decided to add a little bit of green in between there, and I did this similarly to when you would do a tie. So I cut a diagonal, which I will show you how to do that in a minute. So essentially the idea is that you have two diagonals and you're placing them overlapping each other. And this means that when you sew it across, you'll end up getting like a diagonal line and it'll be straight. So it's something that you often see when you're making like a men's tie. Let's see what it looks like. Yep, just like that. And there. So then we just want to iron it a lot. Sorry for my bare foot in there. And I'm just kind of tucking in the edge on both sides, and then once that's ironed, we're going to be folding it one more time so this becomes quite thin. So I had folded it one more time and started pinning. I know it looks like a crazy thing, like how would you even start sewing it? But it works. So again, you've got both sides folded in and ironed, and then you're just going to fold it one more time and pin it. Now that you've got this crazy snake of a thing done, you're just going to feed it through the machine and put that edge right on the edge, or as close to it as you can. So I have two of these, and I just stacked them on top of each other and pinned it. And now I'm just running a stitch over at the very top, and you're all done. I hope this gives you the courage to try something new, and I hope you'll stop by again and we can do the shorts together.